Mariam was an 8th-grade student, a quiet and ambitious girl. Her face reflected her innocence, and her eyes sparkled with hope despite the difficulties she faced at school. Everyone at her school knew her, but in a different way, as she was the target of constant bullying. This bullying was led by Ahmed, who had striking beauty and an arrogant personality, making him the leader of a group of students who enjoyed humiliating her. One day, while Mariam was heading to her class, she overheard Ahmed whispering to his friends. Mariam's heart started racing, as she knew that today would be another day of suffering. Over the weeks, Mariam began to notice how everyone was distancing themselves from her. She would sit alone in the corners, while Ahmed and his friends laughed and waved at her. Mariam felt deep sadness, but thought that there was no escape from this reality. But one day, something strange happened. While Ahmed and his friends were throwing hurtful jokes during physical education class, Mariam felt something unusual. She didn't want to hide behind her silence anymore. She wanted to respond, but how? The next day, Mariam decided to respond. When Ahmed started mocking her as usual, she simply looked at him with steady eyes and said, "Why are you doing this?" The laughter in his mouth paused for a moment, but Mariam felt a courage she had never felt before. Despite this strong moment, Ahmed did not stop. In fact, he intensified his bullying, and this time he became more cruel. He would send her hurtful messages, and sometimes he would spread rumors about her among the students. Life at school was becoming a nightmare day by day. Then came a strange day, when Mariam was sitting alone in the schoolyard. Yasin, a quiet and unpopular student, approached her. He wasn't the type to make noise, but on this day, he came to sit beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. It seemed that Yasin wasn't affected by what others said. From that day on, Yasin began to accompany Mariam everywhere. He would ask her about her day and comfort her whenever she felt sad. Students began to wonder about the strange relationship between them, and some hinted that Yasin had become closer to Mariam. In one of the classes, Mariam was surprised when she noticed Ahmed staring at her with strange looks. He was gazing at her in a way she had never experienced before. She wondered, is he starting to feel something? But no, he was laughing with his friends. One day, while Ahmed was mocking her in front of the students, Mariam looked at him and said, "You're just afraid of something. You're afraid that people will see your weakness, so you try to make others feel inferior to you." Everyone was silent, and no one expected such a strong response from Mariam. Ahmed was stunned for a moment. After that day, some students began to approach Mariam. They noticed her inner strength and how she no longer submitted. The perception of her started to change, and some girls started talking about her with admiration for her courage. Even some of Ahmed's old friends began to feel embarrassed by their behavior. The next day, Ahmed approached Mariam. He said, "You think you're strong, but you don't know anything about strength." But Mariam didn't respond to him. She simply gave a calm smile and said, "Strength isn't in bullying others. Strength is in being ourselves, regardless of what people say." For the first time, Ahmed felt something strange in his heart. After that confrontation, Ahmed began to change in an unexpected way. He started to realize that he was no longer receiving the attention he once had. Ahmed began to understand that he had been hiding his weakness behind his bad behavior. He began to admit his mistakes. One day, he approached Mariam and said, "I want to apologize. I was acting wrong, and I want to change myself."